Goers attending a country music festival in Las Vegas on Sunday night was a local resident with no prior criminal convictions in the state of Nevada. Stephen Paddock, 64, lived just 90 minutes outside Las Vegas in the city of Mesquite, where he purchased a home in a retirement community for just over $369,000 in 2015 according to public records. He lived there with his 62-year-old girlfriend Mary Lou Danley, the same woman police announced they were seeking to question on Sunday night as they began their investigation into the horrific terror attack. Paddock had both hunting and fishing licenses according to public records, as well as his pilot's license, but no criminal record in the state of Nevada. He was retired but had worked as an internal auditor at Lockheed Martin for 3 years in the late 1980s, and managed an apartment building complex in Mesquite, Texas. Paddock was also the son of Benjamin Hoskins Paddock, a serial bank robber who ended up on the FBI Most Wanted list back in 1969 when he escaped from federal prison in Texas while serving a 20-year sentence. The FBI kept him on the list for the next 8 years, and he was eventually found 1 year after he was removed from the list in 1978 while outside an Oregon bingo hall. The agency said that the fugitive had been diagnosed as psychopathic and also had possible suicidal tendencies. Paddock had committed suicide by the time police breached the door to the room from which the gunman had opened fire at the Mandalay Bay Resort just after 10 p.m. on Sunday night. It marked the end of what has now become the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history, which left at least 58 dead and 515 injured. The attack played out as Jason Aldean performed on stage to close out the third and final day of the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, which was taking place across the street from the resort. Over 20,000 people were in attendance at the event, and described the attack as non-stop gunfire, which only stopped when the gunman went to reload his weapon. It is not yet known what weapon or weapons the gunman used in the attack. Police said in a press conference early Monday that they discovered in excess of 10 rifles in the room, and that Paddock's death was the result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He is believed to have acted alone at this time, despite early reports that stated there may have been multiple shooters on the scene. Images of the Mandalay Bay Resort taken after the attack show 2 large windows on the 32nd floor of the building completely blown out. Paddock had been staying there since last Thursday, arriving on September 28 to the hotel. His Mesquite home was searched by officials early Monday, who closed off a large perimeter around the Nevada property to keep the public and media at bay. Authorities said that Danley is not believed to have been an accomplice in the attack after locating her outside the country. Paddock used Danley's ID when he checked himself into the hotel according to a source with knowledge of the investigation, despite the fact that she was not with him during his stay. Police were also on the lookout for 2 motor vehicles in the wake of the attack which they have also since located. Paddock and Danley live in an upscale community that includes an 18-hole golf course, indoor and outdoor swimming pools and a recreation center with gym. Residents must be over the age of 55 and no children are allowed to live in the development of over 1,000 homes. In addition to his pricey Nevada property, Paddock was also the owner of 2 planes, and according to the FAA records was certified as a private pilot back in 2003. His address on that 2003 certification is listed as Mesquite, Texas, where he lived in a $200,000 home for 12 years from 1998 to 2010. Records do not show him owning or living at any home, however, between 2010 and 2012, when he moved to Reno after 2 decades in Texas. Police have not said at this time whether or not Paddock had ties to any domestic or foreign terror groups, but he is not believed to have any connections per multiple sources including his brother. ISIS meanwhile claimed responsibility for the attack Monday, saying the gunman was a recent convert to Islam. That claims was quickly discredited by multiple officials, who stated that there is no evidence to support that allegation. In an interview on Monday morning, Eric Paddock spoke about how shocked he was to learn that his brother was the suspected gunman. Eric said that his brother was not an avid gunman and has no military background while speaking with CBSN, adding that he had no idea how he might have been able to obtain automatic weapons. He had a couple of guns, but they were all handgun, legal. He might have had one long gun, but he had them in a safe, explained Eric. Eric stated later in that same interview, his life is an open book. It's all in public record. Once again, there is nothing. He went to college. He had a job. He also said that his brother had no religious affiliation, no political affiliation, adding, he just hung out. Danley meanwhile was a nice woman who baked cookies for her mother-in-law, said Eric, who conducted the interview outside his Florida home. Eric did admit that he and his brother do not speak often on account of the fact that they live on opposite coasts, but did share a recent text he received from his brother, asking how their 90-year-old mother was holding up in the wake of Hurricane Irma. He closed out the interview by saying of his brother, he's just a guy who lived in Mesquite who liked burritos. During that interview, Eric also made mention of the fact that his brother would often go to Las Vegas to gamble, and that Danley worked in one of the hotels as a hostess. In an interview with Florida Today, two former neighbors of Paddock also spoke about his gambling, saying he would stay up all night with Danley placing bets. He seemed normal, other than that he lived by gambling. He was very open about that, revealed Sharon Judy. First time we ever met him, he handed us the key to the house and said, "Hey, would keep an eye on the house, we're only going to be here every now and then." Judy lived next door to Paddock in Melbourne, Florida, where he and Danley had a home from 2013 through 2015 that they only visited a handful of times according to their neighbor. That home was located at Heritage Isle in Vieira, another retirement community that only admitted residents over the age of 55. Paddock bought his Mesquite, Nevada home at around the same time that he sold the Florida property. 3 years prior he filed a lawsuit against Cosmopolitan Hotels and Resorts following an incident that occurred at their Las Vegas casino. Paddock spent 2 years in court fighting his case after submitting his initial complaint citing negligence, premises liability. It was ultimately dismissed in late 2014 with prejudice, though exact details of the case were not available on the Clark County Court's website.